Hello, Mr. Blough. I'm Renee Kyle, and I am a grad student at Arizona State University. And so I just wanted to take the time to interview you as a veteran. I did a research paper on veterans and suicide, and so I just wanted to take a little bit of your time to get some information from you, and I really appreciate you volunteering and helping me out with this. So I have some questions for you whenever you're ready to start. So, all right. So what branch of the military were you in?
When I first entered the service, I was in the United States Marine Corps. I spent 6 years with them.
Awesome. What did you do? What was your role?
I was in motor transport in the 1st Marine Division, and on what we done is haul supplies and haul our communication equipment out to set up where they can have communications out in the field. Whether that be in stateside, you know, just practicing maneuvers and stuff and all. Then I got in on the tail end of Vietnam, and we were out on ship duty. You'll get ship duty while you're in and all for a period of time and whatnot. And we were out and we were traveling about in convoys and stuff, and we wound up pulling in for supplies at Okinawa, and then turned around. They'd sent us from there to Vietnam, but we was just there for a short period. You have to be in the country for X amount of time in order to receive credit or whatever. And our purpose was, at the time, was to go in and destroy some classified equipment and stuff. And then we pulled out and got back on ship and on, and came back to the States.
So how old were you when all that was going on?
I was
Young whippersnapper?
yeah, I was 20 years old.
20, oh wow, 20. Well, that's awesome. And so you were 26 when you got out then? Or
Yeah, I was coming on 26. I stayed out for about 5 years, and I knew a lot of guys that was in the unit down here, and they kept bugging me in the National Guard unit, so I decided I'd get back in, and I stayed with the National Guard until 1997. I retired out with 23 years and 4 months.
wow. That's awesome.
I went with the Guard. We was mobilized in '90 for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I went over with them with that, and then come back in '91, and I taught weapons. Of course, I was, like I said, this was my home unit, the 224th Maintenance. But what time I wasn't drilling with them or whatnot, I was at Camp Robinson teaching weapons, and I'd done that for 18 years and whatnot, teaching all the weapons and stuff, and I really liked it and all. But it was, as time went on, it became more and more a younger man's ball game, and everything's getting more updated, computerized, you know, technology
taking over.
And it was getting to be a younger man, and I'd been away, and it was time for me I got out in time to see my kids graduate from school, and that meant more to me than anything.
Yeah.
Because I'd missed most of growing up and whatnot.
Right. Well, that's good. So you got to see family, have some family time, which was important.
Definitely family time. Yes.
Great. So after you quit the National Guard or retired from the National Guard, what's it been like since you've not been active? What have you gotten yourself involved in, or what have you been doing?
Naturally, I got back in the workforce and all.
Okay.
So I got out there and I worked, you know, making a living and whatnot.
Yeah.
And of course, like I said, my kids have grown up, and I started having grandkids and stuff and whatnot. But I didn't have a lot of problems adjusting back like a lot of people do and everything and all. But that all depends on what you was in, you know, when you got over there. I mean, if you was constantly in battle all the time, like you're 11 Bravo or whatever, that's a lot of difference, because, I mean, you're doing that day in and day out. Whereas when I was over there in the Gulf and stuff and all, we were fixing equipment and kept sending it to the front line and stuff and all. know, so that we wasn't physically involved. It's not to say that we couldn't have been because we was over in there, but we was back enough and there was enough forces in front of us, you know, that we didn't have to do any combat. But now we did supply people up that went up that refueled tanks and stuff and done things like that. But as far as being actually in the fighting part, didn't have to.
You didn't have to be in that. Wow. Do you think that that helped with your adjustment? Do you think that because of that? Hard to say,
Well,
maybe?
it's hard to say. Everybody's different. They react different. You know, it just depends, you know, what you get into, you know. That's the whole thing.
Right.
The hardest part about the whole thing is you make friends, naturally. You do that even in the civilian world and all. And then, you know, and each one of us relies on the other. I mean, you know, you've got my back, I've got your back. You know, that's one of them deals. That's why it's brotherhood, that's why it's called.
Right.
Now, the hardest part is if one of your friends that you spent time with and all gets killed. And then it starts wearing on you.
I can imagine.
And then you see another one. And then you start wondering, well, when's it my time? You know.
Right.
And it eats at you. And then, of course, being away from family and of course, the good thing about it is they pick them young, and that's why you start off young in it, is you're kind of brainwashed in one sense because you don't know nothing no better. They tell you what to do, and that's all you do. You do what you're told. Do what you're told. So, but then when you get on up there in age, you've been at it a while and all, then you kind of look at it a little different than that. But you still do what you're told. You're not up there in rank.
Yeah. Did, you'd mentioned losing friends.
Yes.
Did one of your friends commit suicide?
Yes, yes, I had a friend to commit suicide and whatnot. You know, it's hard to say what drives a guy to do it. It could be family, you know, being away from family and dealing with those problems and whatnot, as well as what you said. Like I said, it gets to a lot of them when you lose somebody and whatnot and you're close to. So it's really hard to say exactly what makes a guy do it because there's so many things, you know, that he's dealing with. And, you know, a lot of that's the first time for us. You know, I mean, being in it, you know, and being that far away from home and being in an environment that's entirely different than what we're used to. And
was he in the military when he did it, or was he out?
No, we got out.
You'd gotten out
and whatnot. And my personal feelings are, I think a lot was adjusting back in civilian life because when you're in, you know, you're taught so many things, not just your job, but you're taught to do away with the enemy, you know, you know, with the best of your ability. So it affects everybody different and whatnot.
Did he have family support? Was his family close to him, or did he have?
You know, I really, he was, I'd say in one sense, but you know, in there, when you're away like that and all, the family is the guys you serve with.
Sure.
That's your family.
So,
you really don't know, and a lot of it's private when you get your letters. Of course, a lot of guys share with their, you know, hey, I got this from home, or, you know, whatever. And a lot of them just kind of, you know, gets over in the corner or whatever, you know, because it just kind of eats at them. Just it's private, and they miss home. And by God, I'll tell you, I missed home quite a bit myself and all because, you know, I'd been away as much as 3 years at a time and all, and that, and it's you come back and a lot of things are not like it was when you left. Especially coming back, and when I got through with my first tour in, and I'm coming back, and all the landing at the airports, and the protesting, and
really?
And
because of the war,
spitting at you, and baby killers, and all this stuff. It was just and we had, of course, in the Corps, anytime we went anywhere, when we was out and we were still in, we had to be in uniform. We done our best to try to get in civilian clothes or whatever so that we wouldn't get hounded. But the haircuts or anything like that gave it away. But the worst thing is when you was in uniform, they knew right then and there. And boy, they just start at you when you get off the plane and you start getting into the deals. They just be picketing and hounding and just screaming baby killers and all this stuff. And all, man, all you want to do is just get back home and see the family.
Did that weigh heavy on you too? Hearing all
that was kind of tough.
That negativity and hearing all of that, those negative comments.
Tough, you know, and I'm sitting there going, you know, hey, we're over there, so you don't have to.
That, exactly.
We take it over there, and we're doing this for you, and then we got to come home and face this grandpa and everything and all. I mean, like,
it's disheartening.
You know, and a lot of guys lost it. I mean, there was a lot of fights at them terminals and stuff. You know,
goodness.
You know, they
got tired of hearing it, huh?
Yeah, they jump on them.
I can imagine.
And say, hey, I'll educate you real quick.
Sure.
You know, but I mean, you know, but it just. You know, that's tough. You go over there and you do, you know, you do your job, and then you come back and then you have to face that here at home. You don't expect that here at home, you know.
Right.
And there wasn't no welcome then like there was now for vets coming home and stuff and all. I mean, that was about the only welcome you got was that and all. It was never none of this. Hey,
parades
proud
and
you served, you know, and all this and you know, no, it was just the opposite, you know.
Yeah, hard times. You guys endured some hard times.
Yeah, it was definitely different.
Definitely. I don't know if I asked you how old your friend was.
He was in his mid-20s.
Mid-20s, okay. How did that affect you when that happened?
Well, it was a shock to me.
Really?
You know, one thing, I couldn't place the guy doing it, you know. I mean, from what I knew of him,
right.
You know, and served with him and everything and all. But then, like I, you know, said again and all, it's hard to say what's going through a guy's mind, you know, and what he's dealing with, or what comes back to haunt him from, you know, things he dealt with.
I can imagine.
I don't know if you're aware of and all, and you probably are. If you had any family members that served in service or whatever and all, been back. Well, you know, like our dads, my dad's stuff especially and stuff, they never really talked about it, you know, when they was in.
I've noticed that
and,
some people don't.
One reason being, and of course I could understand it now and all after going through my time of service and whatnot, it's hard to rehash that stuff up and live it over.
Sure, I can imagine.
They don't want to bring it up. They don't want to, you know, live it. And you can't talk to people that, you know, you can say all the Hollywood movies and stuff you want. That don't even come near what it's like and whatnot. So it's hard to tell somebody when they really don't have a clue, and that's all they got to base, you know, their deal on. And like I said, those that was really in the thick of things and all, and seeing their friends and stuff, you know, a lot of them just cold-hearted. I mean, you know,
just kind of shut down maybe.
I didn't want to make a lot of friends after the first deal because, like I said, you know, you see friends or whatever, or know of in another outfit that's not just actually with you, but you knew the guys and stuff, and hearing about them getting killed or whatever. I start swearing on them. That thing about it, what hit you is, am I going to get out here, or my number going to be up, you know, and whatnot. And that takes a lot of weight on you, but you just try to clear your mind. You go out and
just do what
you're
you're told.
And just hope that, you know, you start becoming a short timer and your days are numbered. A lot of guys, that's what they look forward to, but then a lot of them, and right in the very last day before they got to go home, you know, got killed or whatever. So,
it's definitely a heavy task.
And it's hard to tell somebody about it. Like I said, it's easier for a veteran to sit with a veteran because he knows. But to sit and discuss it with somebody else that, like I said, you know, they just seen movies or this and that, and that's what they're basing it on, and all that, you know. It's a whole lot different.
Can't really relate to what you're saying.
It's a whole lot different being over there and hearing bombs coming down, whistling through the air, and I'm wondering if you're right under them, or if they're going over here, or if bullets whizzing by, you're wondering if, that got my name on it or whatever. You try to get a little lower in the deal, and then a little lower, and you can't get
There's nowhere else to go.
You can't get low enough.
I can't imagine that feeling.
So
you guys definitely sacrifice a lot to keep us
and
together and safe over here.
It was really in the thick of things, you know, and I can just imagine, you know.
But
not everybody can be, and I'm not knocking the guys, I'm not.
No, I
I
understand.
tell them, these kids go, oh, how many kill, whatever. Well, you don't talk to them about that, no.
Yeah.
And I usually tell them, not everybody can be John Wayne,
Yeah, John Wayne.
Some people, drives trucks, and you got some people that cook for you, But it
Right.
takes everybody to do it.
Yes, to be a unit and collective.
Some people just fortunate than others,
Yeah.
Others just had the tough stuff to do,
Sure.
But I said, I got that guy give me something to eat or whatever, I couldn't have done this or
Right.
that,
Yeah.
So everybody played a part. I said, if it was a one-man deal, we'd send Rambo over there, let him take care of it, and the rest of us go home.
There you go, Rambo, yeah. Were there any women in the military? What was their role?
My first tour in service, and I was back through the 70s, and the women, there were women in the military. The only time I ever got to see them was administrative work or nurses and so
Right.
forth. As time went on and I got out and had my 5-year break and then got back in and whatnot and got in, more and more women were taking more active parts and whatnot, and they were playing more roles, and then especially in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, they were women right out there with us and
Wow.
whatnot. So
Was that a big change from Vietnam to?
big change.
Yeah,
Big change.
I can
and all.
imagine.
It's, because a lot of guys like myself and all, we weren't used to that, and not knocking the women, but we didn't think it was their business to be out there. It's more of a man's role and whatnot. But they were pushing, how do you say it? And I'm not knocking women, but
No, I
pushing
understand.
Equality
Yeah,
and all
women,
that.
yeah.
All that was pushing, and that was another deal that was taking effect and all. That it was kind of hard, us being out of pocket of things and all, and
Right.
seeing that come in and whatnot. So that made a big change and all. A lot of your older service members and stuff and all had a hard time and still
Accepting
have
it.
time adjusting to it and all, because we don't knock women and whatnot, but we feel like there's certain roles they ought to take and let the men do the other stuff and
Yeah.
whatnot. But I'm not saying they can't do it, because I saw a gal over there, she could pick up tank track and all and drag sections of it better than some guys could. Never did argue with her.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, that's good. Did any women commit suicide over there, or did you hear of any women committing suicide?
Not to
on
my
board?
knowledge. Of course, every deal's different. Since Desert Shield, Desert Storm, they've been back Enduring Freedom, and stuff,
Right.
and then War on Terror, stuff, which is, 17 years down the road, and that stuff still's going on,
Right.
and stuff and all. Tactics are different in each deal. For instance, this year we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of World War One.
The 100th anniversary?
Right, and
Oh, wow.
everything and all. So, and this is 100 this year, so that's the whole main theme this year and stuff and whatnot. That was a trench war. And trenches about 200 yards apart and all. Nobody got no man's land. If they did, of course, everybody come out and just made a frontal assault charge, kind of like back in the Civil War and stuff and all. And they were just being mowed down left and right, just did and all. And that was the war then. And then you come on up to World War II, it was fought different and whatnot. No. Then you come on up to Korea, it was a little different. And you get up to Vietnam and all, well, they had plenty of booby traps, pits with bungee sticks in it. They had tunnels and cities built under the deal and all. And
So what I think I'm hearing you say is that each war took on its own type of war, and
Right,
the way
right,
they
it was-
handled it.
Right, the
and
way it was
there
handling
are-
everything and all, and then you get up under it, and then of course they had these IEDs and stuff now, and all more guys are being blown up,
Right.
with those improvised,
Yeah.
explosive devices
Sure.
and whatnot. So everything's a little different and whatnot. I mean, the tactics are still the same, and that's to kill the enemy or whatever, but the way they go about it is a little
It's
different
different.
and whatnot. We're having more people come back now that's legs blowed off, arms blowed off, and for one thing or another.
Right.
Than we've had in any other war in the past
Right.
and whatnot. But that's just a different deal of tactics.
Right.
Down the road, who knows what the tactics will be?
Right.
They'll be close to the same, but they'll be a little different.
Right.
So each deal.
So they advance in different ways.
In different ways and whatnot. As the technology advances, they're doing more things technical wise, you know, to the deal and all. And it's hard. You just got to be on your toes, and that's why these young people being taught like they are and all. Big changes have come. The overall deal is, I don't care what it comes to or whatever, there'll always be a ground soldier to go in and mop everything up.
Really?
That has to go in and make the final deal and the final sweep and everything to clear everything. Because we'll never get to the part where they won't be somebody have to be out there.
Right, right. So, two things. You mentioned movies and how they depict war. Is there any movie out there that has gotten it pretty close or right?
Close.
Or
yes, there is and all. And I've told a high school bunch and all when I was talking to them and all in a class deal and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to get close to the real thing, there's a couple of movies out there that I advise you to see that will give you a pretty close example of what it was like with not having to be there. Hacksaw Ridge is one of them.
I saw that movie and I was going to ask
and that
about
was
that.
very
one.
true and accurate right there. And the other one is, give me just a second.
That's okay. Take your time.
Lone Survivor, and that'll
Lone
get you
Survivor.
That will
That's a
get you
good
up
one.
in today's terms what we dealt with in Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff and whatnot, and the way things are going even today. That's the two closest to give you something that would give you a pretty, and those are both based off of true facts
stories.
and deals and whatnot. They're not Hollywood deals. They are actually
Depictions.
true events. There's another one that's that I recommend also, and I got to see his a while back. I'd heard, but it didn't start coming out till, I guess it was about this summer. I knew of it and some of the deal, but I didn't put two and two together. Horse Soldier.
Yes.
You know, with Chris Hemsworth and all in it. See, that
Yes.
took place before we all wound up over there in 90 and 91 and whatnot. And that's true. That is about as accurate as it
That movie, I cried for ever on that movie.
and whatnot. So, but see, the reason it didn't come out so, and all it was classified up till just about, I think it was about March when they started declassifying, and then of course they had been in the process of making this and all, but they couldn't release it or whatever until they released it. And I want to say, wasn't it about June or July, I think, when they released that movie.
Yeah, maybe
and
so.
whatnot. But that's because they had declassified because so much stuff was taking place that was not there, and that now they could declassify it.
Right.
But yeah,
So-
I recommend them and all that. If you kids nowadays too, if they really want to get a taste, and I tell any of those guys that I thought about going in and everything to really look at them, you know,
And take into consideration that this is what it's going to be like.
This is what it's
you want
like.
them to
It's
have
not,
a
it's not the Hollywood.
yeah,
It's the,
right.
yeah, it's the real McCoy.
Sure. So when you were over there in battle and in 91 in Desert Storm and in Vietnam, was the overall kind of like drive for everybody to win the war, or is it to save your brother, or what is your thoughts? What took over for you? Like, was it actually to win?
Well, it was to do the job we were sent over to do and win it, and you know, and come back home as
Sure.
quick as
So
possible.
come back home. Mm-hmm.
The trouble is, and it should have happened in 90 and 91. We had the capability, we had the manpower over there, but they wanted to accomplish the mission they'd set out and ended at that instead of finishing the whole thing so nobody'd have to go back.
Right.
But that's the political side of it, and Vietnam was the same way. We had a purpose, but our hands were tied on what you could and could
What you
not
couldn't do.
Mm-hmm. And that hindered when somebody 4,000 miles away is telling you what to do, and they're not in the heat
They're
of
not
things.
there. Mm-hmm.
And they're saying you got to do this and do that, and you know, hey, you want to hear the bullets flying by, you know, and everything and whatnot.
Right.
Don't tell me, I'm right here in the thick of things.
Sure.
You can't do. Well, yeah, I'm telling you, you can, because it's do or die for us right here. And everything.
Right.
Now, it ain't one of these deals we can. Well, we'll put this off, come back, pick up where we left off tomorrow. No.
Right. It doesn't work like that.
No, don't work like that.
Anything else that you would like to share with me? That is pretty much all of my questions that I have.
I look back over it, you know, constantly all the time. I wouldn't trade the experience for nothing. I definitely hate to go back through it again. I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Sure, yeah.
But I got to see pretty much all the world that I would have never got to see. Of course, I was in the draft days. Makes a big difference volunteering draft,
Right,
you know, and
right.
whatnot. Instead of just reading history in school, as history was history back in my days and whatnot, I got to live it. I got to see places I'd read about in history books that I never would have got to see if it hadn't been for getting into service.
So you got to experience some different cultures.
Yeah, different
and
cultures,
meet different
and
people,
realize
diverse.
that you know, we think every culture's like us and all, and no,
It's not, exactly.
No, it's different. It's a day and night, and there's a lot of good things out there and whatnot. But
Did those other cultures respect you when you went to them?
a lot of them did,
or
but
did they?
But when you go into a different country or you have to respect their culture when you get there.
Exactly.
And I don't care whose culture it is. They have different ways. Our women, for instance, when we was in Desert Shield and Desert Storm, they required to be covered, just like the women there, and not to show. And out of courtesy, they made our women do that. Anytime we was in areas where they were population or whatever, they had to go with, you know, or if we went to meetings where there was a lot of their people interacting with ours and whatnot, and they had to be
cover.
You know, they had to be covered and all. And you got to respect that, because we're in their you know, country, and they've got rules and stuff, and you just got to follow them. You know, just like we expect them to do if they came here and all. A lot of theirs is a lot more strict than ours and whatnot. And I mean, you boo-boo there and all, it could cost you an arm, a leg, or even being shot. And they don't wait to have court system on you. They do it right out on the main square or whatever. And it's a deterrent to anybody else that thinks they can get away with it and all. They publicly do it, and you know that right then and there.
Oh my goodness.
And that's a shock when you see those things and whatnot.
I can imagine.
You know, you're used to things here, and it's
hard to watch, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's like, guys, I think we need to
go somewhere else, huh?
Let's go back to where we feel safe, where
Get
all
out
the
of
people
there.
are.
I can imagine. Well, I really appreciate you sitting down with me.
Well,
I truly
thank you for
appreciate
asking
it.
me and whatnot.
The Veterans Hall is beautiful, you guys. So one more thing, afterthought. One more thing before we close out. What is something, or is there anything that we as civilians can do to help veterans and to help with services, or are there services that you guys need that you're not getting? What are some ways we can help you guys?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is when you see a veteran, thank him for his service. That's a big uplift to the guys. A lot of them never got that when they come home. So that's one thing. Support your veterans organizations, groups, you know, come to their programs and things that they put on through the year and stuff. They get out in the community outreach, helping, you know, their local veterans wherever, you know, in their county or whatever, and they try to do a few things. through the year, programs, whether it be helping the school kids and educating them, true history, or just putting on a show that for the older vets and stuff and whatnot, like the USO tribute show we'll be doing on the 30th of November. It's just bring back memories, happier memories for some and whatnot, and just let them know we ain't forgot them, and just give them just kind of a way to reminisce, to a point. Now, like I said, a lot of them, it bring back old memories, kind of hurt. But
they can come if they want to.
Yeah.
If they don't want to, they don't have to. It's kind of just open.
It's not a forced deal and everything and all. But the main thing is just appreciation, letting them know, like I said, and thanking them for their service.
Sure.
That's the most uplifting thing.
Appreciation goes a long way.
It really helps the Vietnam veterans, which they didn't get that when they come back. They're getting more and more of it now and whatnot. But it helps them all, regardless whether they World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Enduring Freedom, and so forth and so on. That's what I would say to the citizens out there, and because when you look at the overall majority and population of our country, being in so many. I think the United States is, don't quote me, but I want to say it's being,
There's 20 million.
20
million for veterans.
Well,
total.
yeah, but I'm talking about the overall population of the country. And then
And
then you take 1% of that that's going and doing all the deal, because our military is shrinking fast compared to what it was in the days. It's getting less, and that's because it's a volunteer service, whereas it was a draft service back in my day and all. And naturally, everybody coming within age and all was drafted in. Now, they had a 2-4 year obligation and all, depending on what branch you went in and whatnot. Nowadays, it's and I think, and of course that's just me personally, I think the draft was a great thing, and the reason being is it helped you to really realize what it took to make our country and what the forefathers done to get our country established and where it is today. And it helped you respect our country, and if you didn't like it, you had the opportunity to move to another one, and you'll find out that out of all the countries you could go to, this is the best in the world right here, because all the conflicts, regardless of what we've been into, whether it was being in partnership with another country or whatever, and saying that if somebody attacks you, we'll help defend you, and your rights or whatever. Forgive me, I lost my train of thought.
But anyway, you were talking about all the countries and how they were the best. We were the best. Because no matter what the war was about, it was
it was for mutual help or whatever. But it gives you respect for our country, what it stands for, by being, what I'm saying, drafted, and you going through your tour, because that's one thing they teach you in the deal of why we do it. And
so if the soldiers did have an opportunity to leave the country at that time, they didn't go, or they did? You said that
we had a lot of them that didn't go to Vietnam. If you go back through history, and they went to Canada or wherever to keep us what they referred to as draft dodgers. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just refused. They didn't believe in it or whatever. Now. Where I was always brought up and all, I love my country, I believe in it, and it's worth fighting for. I would rather go do my part than to have to make my sisters, brothers, or whatever have to go do it. So that's the way it was in my day when I went in. It was not so much, it was an honor to go in, and of course I had previous family, and it was just a generation after generation doing it and whatnot. And so definitely, as a deal growing up and then listening to them and whatnot, I wanted to do my part when I got big enough, and whatnot.
Yeah.
you hope you go through and never have to do anything and whatnot, but anymore, it don't work out that way.
Right. Yeah, times are changing.
Yeah, and faster than I can keep up with.
Well, thank you for answering that.
Well, that's all right and everything.